Jay Harwich. This is very special edition of Amazing Conversations. We have three very honorable guests on. Sue Lucci, Senior Vice President of Baseball Operations with the Mets. Bobby Clemens, Head of Creative Contact with the Mets. And Todd Zeal, a 16-year Major League player, a current announcer at SNY. All the people on this call, I think, have one thing in common. We really pledged to never forget about 9/11. I think it's ingrained in the three of us, the four of us on this call. And, just brief synopsis. Todd was one of the team leaders of the 2001 Mets, um, helped generate, exchanging caps with the police and firemen. Sue was the head of our recovery at Shea Stadium. And, Bobby is the head of our creative contacts department. And Bob, why don't you tell the people first? We have a film coming out sometime in early December, 11 days in September, about 9/11 and what the Mets did on those days. Why don't you, it's all yours, Bobby.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Jay, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I think so. We're going to be putting out a documentary, a mini doc, probably about 30 minutes long, called 11 Days in September. And, we hear a lot of stories. Everybody knows stories of the game when we came back, Piazza hitting that home run and just the magic that happened that day. But not a lot of people know the story of the relief efforts at Shea that happened in those 11 days from when the towers were struck until that game. And we thought it was really important to tell that story. You know, Shea Stadium was a site for cheering and competition in baseball, and it really in those days became a center for compassion. For compassion and coordination. And we've interviewed uh, Mets players such as Todd and John Franco and Bobby Valentine, and obviously we've interviewed you, Jay, and Sue, who are an integral part of telling this story. Um, and the documentary is going to highlight the vital role that the ballpark played in those relief efforts. It is going to be released in September, um, aiming for around September 11th. But it's just and I keep saying to everybody as we're creating this documentary, it's so incredible how this happened. 20 almost 25 years ago, and everybody's stories align. A lot of times when you're doing documentaries like this, there's a little, people remember things a little bit differently. Um, this you all remembered it identical, which makes it so raw and real, and tells us that this is actually what happened. In a time when there's not a lot of footage from that time, because that was a time where everybody put the cameras down and helped out, which was really really incredible to me. And then hearing, when we spoke to Todd and we spoke to John and we spoke to you and Sue, you all give credit to each other. You never, nobody here was like, yeah, I was in charge of this or I was in charge of that. It's when we spoke to Bobby, all the credit went to Sue and Jay. When we spoke to Todd, the credit went to Jay. When we spoke to Jay, the credit went to the players. So just a really incredible. Happy to shed light on what happened in those 11 days. So we're really excited for everybody to see it.
So let me start with you with this. Where were you on the morning of the 11th, and how did the recovery effort in the parking lot get into fruition?
So I was at Shea Stadium. We were getting ready to have a sponsored game, and it was early in the morning. And I was in the admin office, which was the second floor at Shea. Uh, and the news came over the TV. There was a few people in the offices. It was early. The start time was usually 9:30 for the front office. So the first plane hit the tower, and people started funneling in from home to work. Uh, and the next 24 hours proved crucial to the operation. Plans had changed quite a few times as to what was going to happen. Um, but I believe it was NYPD who reached out to us to use the stadium uh, to help with the injured and kind of use it as a hospital. But as we all learned, things changed, and we went through a few changes with what we were going to be doing at Shea, and we winded up housing people that had hitchhiked and traveled to the city to help and do whatever they could. And the Red Cross showed up, and we turned the Jets locker room into a really a housing facility for people to take showers and take a few hours of sleep on a cot in the middle of Shea Stadium's lobbies.
Todd, we were in Pittsburgh. We went over the bridge, and it was no towers, and the whole stuff. But how did you and I know you're not going to take credit, but you really helped mobilize us, with the many visits to Ground Zero. In our workday, correct me if I'm wrong, it was workout in the morning and load trucks in the afternoon. We were the perfect team for what happened, don't you think? The 2001 Mets.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that had to converge correctly, and I think we were following not direction necessarily, but we were certainly following the influence and impetus of Bobby Valentine and you and Sue, and we when we came back from Pittsburgh, in the middle of the night and crossed the bridge and saw the towers and then went home. I think a lot of us felt like, okay, we were supposed to be on this road trip playing baseball. That's suddenly that world is totally different again. And what can we do? How do we help? What do we do with our time? The world is changing. We can't travel. Like I had family was back in California. So I looked for, something to kind of put my energy towards because it was a time that nobody could really understand or relate to, especially somebody of my age group. So I think it was a little bit of a release for us to be able to go to the ballpark, be around each other, talk about things, share stories that we're hearing or that are impacting guys directly, especially guys like Johnny and Al that have family and grew up in and around New York. And so once we kind of established that we were going to be going to the ballpark, getting some workouts in, trying to figure out when we were going to maybe go back and what we could do, that's when it became easy for us to just follow the directive that you guys and the example that you guys had set at the stadium to do whatever we could. And then obviously a few of us had, I would say at the time, nervously, we, had the opportunity to go down and visit Ground Zero. And that was obviously, as you well know, for me, life changing and gave me a sense of purpose during that period of time. But that was in unison with what was going on a daily basis, where you could actually see some practical fruits of your labor, loading trucks, getting waters to people, seeing people that were displaced, getting some rest, and watching that become, sort of a way station for anybody and everybody that wanted to, have an effort and make a difference.
So it's making a difference. I've been with the Mets a long time. A lot of great stuff on the field, but when I die, on my tombstone, I want to be I was part of the 2001 team and what we did with the city. Why, Bob? Why do you think it's so important after all these years not to forget about all the thousands of people who died? I think our film will bring back a lot of the stuff. But I ask you all three the same question. Maybe start off with you, Sue. Why do you think it's important not to let people forget?
Well, it's our history, right? And being a member in New York City, um, thousands of people lost their lives. It's a moment in history that we can't forget, and there's people to this day that are struggling, losing their lives from cancer and other diseases from what transpired on that day. And it's important for us to pass on um, what happened and never to forget for all the people who did lose their lives. If we forgot, then we haven't done our job in keeping it raw as to what transpired here in New York City.
But that's one of the purposes of the film, right, Bobby? Not to let people forget.
I think Sue um, is exactly right, and not only the people that are still struggling with health issues from it today, but also the family members. We have family members that work here um, at City Field who had family members and parents that passed away. So I think it's our job to tell this story and then not forget. And remember that, yeah, that night on 9/21 was magical. That what went on the field with the Piazza home run but so much effort went into trying to help heal this city, 11 days before that, prior to that. So I think it's really, really important to never forget that.
Todd, you have your own special way of not forgetting uh, going to a firehouse, whatever, in the city on 9/11. Like we have a group of guys, you, Leiter, Franco, Robin, Bobby, and Mikey's around. Is that your way of, we have one scheduled this 9/11 in Manhattan. Is that your way of, keeping the bond? Yeah, I think that's what kept the 2001 team winning great. It was a great group of guys, and they just, every year we pay homage and respect to the firemen who lost their lives that day.
Yeah, I think that's one place that I felt like, hey, this is a tangible opportunity for me to be a part of something year in, year out, whether or not I've been in New York for the entirety of the year or I'm just there during September. It's always been a way for me to feel reconnected to that time, to that team. But I think one of the things that I think it's great what you guys are doing this season and this year to show kind of the role that Shea Stadium played in it, because I think that's something that a lot of people are going to, not really necessarily know about and find very fascinating and interesting, and the way it was mobilized. But, as know, Jay and Sue, I'm working on a commemorative documentary myself for the 25th anniversary that starts right where you guys are talking about, um and has it's going to be a little bit more encompassing of the Braves impact, the Yankees World Series, the Diamondbacks, kind of being the guys that took the World Series championship from the New York Yankees when it felt like a team of destiny, and all of the other additive pieces. But the one thing that I want to say that I want to be able to show and capture from that, and it goes to the spirit of never forgetting, is it's not just never forgetting the tragedy that happened, but for me it's never forgetting the way this city rallied around each other and the inspirational parts that came about from 9/11, the people that we meet that showed resiliency, that moved on, that forged through their lives through a difficult time and came together, people communicating. And you all of a sudden, everybody on the street was a New Yorker, and a New Yorker was a special thing after that. And I think that um that bond and that inspirational piece of it is something I want people to never forget either. In the toughest of human times, human beings showed a nature of wanting to help one another, and that's where I felt connected in the work that we were doing after 9/11.
One of the things, Bobby, you weren't here on 9/11, were you? I know she had a million films. One of the things, for me, the highlight of the night was, Jay Payton getting embraced in the on deck circle. Sue and Todd, what was, aside, not aside from Mike's home run, is there anything, the bagpipes, anything that really sticks out to you, aside from the home run from that night?
I'll let you start, Sue. I'm sure you have a lot of different things.
I think the kick line with the fire department um, during the New York, I believe it was.
Right.
Um, that was it was memorable just seeing the crowd going crazy, and fire department personnel smiling
Yeah.
and laughing after such a horrific event.
And on top of that, I've said many times, Jay, that Liza Minnelli, New York, New York, and the way the crowd responded to it, and that's just what Sue's talking about with New York, New York, and the kick line. But I remember thinking back when we were getting ready to sit down for one of the documentaries and realizing that I barely remembered anything about the game itself. I remembered Mike's home run, of course. I couldn't remember if I played well, played poorly. I remember being called out for the announcements and spontaneously going and shaking hands with the Braves, which would have never happened in
And
our,
we hated each other back
we're
then.
our rivals and
The
couldn't
Braves
stand
and
each
Mets
other.
hated each other.
I do remember the bagpipes, the pre-game ceremony. I remember the faces of the families on the that we were able to bring down onto the field, and I remembered all of that peripheral um, part of the day, the unbelievable security, the fact that we walked into the ballpark not knowing if there. I mean, we as players, you guys knew because you guys had seen what was happening with the tickets and the preparation. But to us, we weren't sure if there was going to be 5,000 people or 50,000 people. We didn't know if people would show up or if people were going to be angry that we were playing baseball. And there was all of that stuff that surrounded the game. I had recollection for, but then I had to sit down and watch the game to just remember what actually happened between the lines because it was a complete blur to me.
Yeah. Bobby, if somebody, going back to the footage, what stood out to you with doing the research you did for this movie, for the film?
Yeah, so there were so many interesting and inspiring stories just talking to you and the players and Sue, but I think that the most interesting to me was how it all came together. And Sue kind of told this story to us that the city didn't call and say, "Hey, Shea needs to be a relief center." It kind of just happened, which was truly unbelievable to me. From people just starting to drop stuff off at Shea. Why they chose Shea, I don't know, but they did, and then it turned into this just massive relief effort. So I think for me, it was how it all started, and how it started just by people starting to drop stuff off there because they didn't know where else to drop it off. Um, and then how Sue and you and Kevin and others just kind of took the reins on that and turned it into what it was.
You know what was great for me? How the baseball team and the front office all worked together, Sue. I mean, it's like one family, and really, we just bonded together under your direction and Bobby and Todd's direction. We were great. And how many hours did you sleep those 11 days, Sue?
Not a lot. Um, I would leave late at night, go home probably for about 4 or 5 hours, take a shower, and come back. It was a lot, but you didn't even think about it. It was just automatic.
Yeah. What lessons can be learned from working together? I mean, that's why I think this film and Todd, your film next year is really so important to it's 25 years ago, 24. This happened, and people should learn from this and how you can work together. Is there any one thought that you want the film? I'll start with you, Bobby, to get out there. What's one? Is there any one teaching lesson?
Yeah, I think that you know working together on things that matter in this world and being there for other people and the uniting as a team and during that time just from creating this short doc, seeing how it wasn't the players and the staff, everybody was one, and I think that's really important. An important life lesson is that be there for each other and you can get through anything.
Todd, you were in the major leagues for 16 years, 11 or 12 teams. You always told me you're always known for playing for the Mets, mainly because of 9/11, right?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled to ever really have a true legacy with any team because my numbers over the years are compiled and they're David Wright like numbers over the total of my career, but I was never with a team to establish what would feel like a legacy in a home. Except this is what I think is my legacy, and I had a chance to play in a World Series um, in a New York Mets uniform. I ended my career in a Mets uniform, but that year in 2001 and the aftermath of 9/11 is really what solidified me to feeling like this was my baseball family for the rest of my life.
So, for you, is this one of your high points of your career? You made a great contribution. It's not going to be forgotten. Is that how important is that for you?
I would definitely say this is the one of the most proudest moments. Um, and to go back to your question earlier about what it means, staff and players together, I think, we're in such a bad state in the world. And I think when you sit down and have these conversations about tragedies and how people come together, I think that's people have to remember that. And I think that's also a reason why it's important to never forget, because it reminds people of how we were all one. There was no difference amongst anyone. Um, and you also see those types of things with Superstorm Sandy and COVID. We did our part as a Mets organization as well. So I think it's true to say that this organization steps up when there is tragedy, and so do the players. And ball players are known as hitting a ball with a bat, but this story tells so much more about what they do,
Yeah.
and what they can do.
Bobby, let me ask you this. When the film comes out, Tunnels to Towers is a sponsor. Where could fans or people see the film?
Yep. So you'll be able to see it on our social channels and the Mets YouTube channel. So youtube.com/Mets. And that's where it'll live.
But Bob, I mean, Todd, do you have a home yet for your production where it's going to go beyond?
We have some things that I'm not allowed to disclose yet, Jay, but yeah, suffice to say, you and I will be talking about it, and I'll have this group right here will have I'll be happy to have sit down and be involved.
Let me ask you one last question. How many times have you guys seen Mike's home run?
I can't even imagine how
I
many
still get
times it's been
goosebumps.
shown. It's been shown, and yeah, the call on it, and just the reaction, and one of the things that I said in making the preparations for the film of ours, and it probably is relatable to this, is that if that game was you know 5-2 Braves victory with nothing really to kind of mark the moment, in the way that Mike's home run did, in the way that Liza did, we'd have a totally different feeling about that. But it seems like all the stars were aligned, and New York was kind of put in the center of the universe for that minute to be able to find some way of inspiration. And the fact that it was Mike, and it was the Braves, and it was following, being down, and then having the firefighters doing the kick line, and then Mike comes up, hits the homer. I mean, those kinds of things are, as a pseudo Hollywood guy, you'd write that script and think, no, that's dumb. That would never happen. And it did.
How about you, Sue and Bob? How many times do you watch it?
Uh, it tends to always come up around 9/11, and I love to sit and I don't love to, but I feel like it's part of the process every year, when 9/11 comes, to watch the game and all the other broadcasts that they have regarding 9/11. So it definitely every year, I watch it, and it brings back some positive memories of the good that we did.
How about you, Bobby?
Yeah, just being in the on the creative team here, I think I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times. But the one thing that always stands out to me is not the home run itself. It's seeing the crowd reaction after it, and seeing some people going absolutely crazy, and some people crying, and just seeing the relief in people's faces. I think that the crowd just repeating that, it doesn't get old. It's seeing the joy and the relief, and for that brief moment.
Like I see, because I've been here a long time, and I had World Series, got a ring, some All-Star games, but being a part of the, the 2001 team was something I'll never forget. I think NBA fans, baseball fans, not baseball fans, should look for our film, and next year looks for Todd film, because it tells a story that shouldn't be forgotten. And once again, guys, thank you for your time, Sue, Bobby, Todd. Look forward to seeing the films, and see you guys soon. Thanks a whole lot.